Every R107 SL I've ever owned does this. When you move the boot down, the horseshoe lid moves, and I've always thought that they were supposed to be attached like that, but in actual fact they're not. Now the boot or trunk hinge and the horseshoe lid hinge, they are actually joined by a pin through here, but they're supposed to move independently of one another on bushes inside here. And what happens over time is that these pins get completely rusted and stuck to the bushes. So what happens when you move the hinge is the pin is stuck to it, and it's stuck here as well, so the two are moving together when they should actually move freely. I'm going to show you how to get these pins out, and it's a right old job, I can tell you that much. Where to get new pins from, where to get new bushings from, and finally we'll do maybe a separate video on how to actually change the springs, because on every car that I've ever seen those springs are broken. So this boot hinge mechanism is held together by this pin here, and unfortunately this pin is no longer available. This was the piece of hinge that was lying in the red project car that we're about to start work on. What they've done is they've managed to shear that pin off. So if my theory is correct, all I need to do is heat this up and that should just pull straight out. So let's just see if we can do that on camera. Okay, so we've attached the mole grips on there first. We're just going to heat this up and hopefully that pin will slide straight out. See, once you've heated that up, that pin will slide straight out like that. There you go. This is the other part of the same hinge, and to get it out, unfortunately, is not just a simple matter of taking these two screws out and taking it off. That hinge is actually all attached to this metal structure, so what we're going to have to do is get a blowtorch in there and heat that up to try and pull out, I don't know how well you can see that, to pull out this pin. This is such an awkward thing to get out, this bolt. We've got it out about 1 centimetre by heating this up with a blowtorch, but you're going to be so careful that you don't end up melting or bubbling the paint above. It's coming out a fraction of a millimetre at a time. It's taken us about an hour to get it that far out. As I say, you've got to be really careful here that you don't burn the paint, bubble the paint inadvertently. Finally, after about 2 hours, we managed to get the other half of that snap pin out of the hinge. It cost us a lot of bruised knuckles and swearing, but we finally got there, so we should just be able to whiz those two screws out of the horseshoe lid and take that part of the hinge out. Now this is the pin that came out of the gold car, and we've just cut a sliver off here to remove, so we can easily remove this. What usually happens is these pins get rusted underneath those bushings, and often you'll find where the boot and the horseshoe lid opens, the pins wear thinner just at that joint and end up snapping there. So we just ordered some new bushings, but before we put them on, we're just gonna sand that rust off. Getting these hinge pins out is a bit of a nightmare, to say the least. First thing you've got to do is, if you can see that, you've got to bend that metal tab upwards, and then if you were exceptionally lucky, you'd get a set of mole grips around that pin and just pull it straight out. The chance of that happening is almost zero, and what you've actually got to do is heat this with a blowtorch. When you're using a blowtorch to melt those bushings in order to get them free, you need to be exceptionally careful that you don't hold the blowtorch on for too long and you end up bubbling the paint and ruining the paintwork. So my advice would be get a heat sink, either a bucket of ice or a big thing of water or something like that, to lay on top of the metalwork there, so that you don't run any risk of damaging the paintwork. Slowly but surely that pin is coming out, but it is a horrible job. We're just gently heating, we're rocking these hinges back and forward to try and loosen those bushes, and we're getting a set of mole grips on the end there and pulling, but it is really tricky and takes an awful long time. I've been trying for the last day to get this last bit of pin out, and I can't do it. It just won't come out, so I'm going to try and make up my own mini puller to do it. I'm going to use a couple of these heavy duty angle brackets to make up my puller. They happen to have sort of pre-cut holes in there already that are going to be useful to us, like so. We're going to use them back to back. I'm going to put another one on here, and then I'm going to clamp the two together so that we've got some kind of surface that we can pull on. So the idea is using two of these hinges back to back, we should be able to clamp the head of that in. We just need to cut that top hinge off. We're just tapping M5 threads in here, drilling a 4.5mm hole through the two bits of steel, and then we'll just pop in some M5 screws that I happen to have. Okay, the first part of our clamp is on. We just need to attach this second part of the clamp. So the second part of our clamp is on, and in theory all I need to do now is screw this big rod in and tighten it up, and the pin should come out. Just winding that bolt in slowly but surely, and then moving this, making sure it's nice and loose. Our Heath Robinson may not be pretty, but it's working. We've managed to get the first part of the pin out. We just need to keep winding that in, and hopefully that will continue to pull that pin out. So there you have it. Get those pins out. Get yourself a couple of these heavy duty angle brackets, 90x90x 59mm. They already had the pre-cut grooves in there. We drilled some M5 holes, tapped them, made little yokes like that, and then we use an M8 bolt just to push down on that, basically making our own little puller. And although it still took some time to do it, we managed to get that pin out eventually. What we'll be doing now is just drilling these out, stripping all the paint off the hinges, and then painting them properly. Once again, you can see it looks like my daughter's painted that hinge. We're just going to strip it down, put it in a rust bath, get all the rust off, do the job properly. Those pins are basically the same shape as something called a clevis pin, and you can get them on eBay in packs of 4. You want something 90mm long and with a diameter of 8mm. Cost you about £8. Comes from Hong Kong, so it won't get to you quickly, but if you're sort of UK or Europe based, that's probably the cheapest place to get them. If you live in America, you can just go along to these guys here, give them a call, and you can get 3 of these for $8, and you want basically the 4.5-inch 8mm ones. We got our bushings or spacers from this company called Aku. I don't think it matters too much where you get them from, but what you want is 10mm times 8.2mm times 40mm long. And this company incidentally delivered in super quick time. We ordered in the evening and they arrived the next day. Amazing.